Good morning and good day. So this video is not particularly answering any questions from the different communities, but I thought it's useful because sorry, this is I'm gonna go through some of my older pieces to kind of discuss like why it is an old piece, why it's weak, and what I might try and do differently, right? So in this case, I'm just going to quickly duplicate it so I end up editing this one. So this is one of my earlier pieces. With at the time, obviously, I was happy with it, naturally. But as you improve and you change, you realize you're wrong. So this piece might be too bright. Now keep in mind this is an actual level, so all of the pieces you see, those are my level design. These are my prop placements. It's basically me who put every tree, every rock, every detail. So there are obviously other things going on here, like a composition, choice of placement, other things as well in this first piece when I used to do the whole environment as well. So the first thing I will probably do is darken the foreground even more, so you get a bit more of a vignette effect without using post-processing, right? That's the first thing I probably would focus on, right? Just do it a bit darker, and you can see it's already a bit blurry from previously, right? Now here's the thing, this one I don't even know if that's foreground or background. Right, that's what I'm thinking when I was looking at it just now. Is that foreground or background? So that's not good. But let's assume that is a foreground piece. So let's make this a bit, maybe a bit brighter, so we kind of get this popping out. Let's make this also a bit brighter. Let's not make sure that it's all just kind of spread out a little bit, right? So obviously I'm not the Photoshop expert, so it's a matter of principle at this case, not necessarily this is how you do it. I might even do like a little bit over there. Now another thing you might notice is it might be a bit too bright shadows, so I might decide to darken some of the shapes to get a bit more shape around some of these areas, right? Then it really depends. It's supposed to be a daytime, and I might go in and I might look at, is it the exposure curve? No, I think it was levels. So we'll look at it. So you can see it's spiking in the darkness, right? So if I do this, you can see it's clipping, right? So that does say a little bit, and you see there's some clipping here if I do this as well, right? So if I turn this off and this on, this is what we end up with, right? So if I now do levels instead, you can see that I'm also getting pretty dark and contrasted. Now when I do this kind of editing, this is a very quick way for me to know, okay, this is not really a balanced shot. Now in the future I'll be using Lightroom instead. I just have to need some time to get into Lightroom first to do the specific point-to-point edits to really show you what I'm talking about. Okay, so this is another piece, and again, this is a terrible composition, to be fair, and the lighting is also terrible. It's super flat. There's no clarity. You can hardly get an idea of what's going on, right? The leading line is okay, like, because the leading line is these rocks going into this log, which is the bridge. Again, I'm the one who built everything hand by hand, and details, and this chest under the water. This is supposed to be a surprise. So again, here it might have been a good idea for like darkening the edges a bit, you know, so it's kind of more obvious that this is kind of in the shadows, right? Because right now it's kind of difficult to be sure. And then I might have gone for maybe a bit brighter on the top, so we kind of know that this is on the top, right? You can see it's already helping a little bit. Now it is of course not perfect, but that's because the screenshot is shitty as well, so that's point to remember. That's a good way of figuring out what works and doesn't work. So the light's supposed to come from the right side, which means these are supposedly darker, but as you see, you don't really necessarily see it. So it's definitely a very unbalanced shot here. Okay, so it's so bad, I'm just gonna keep going. Now this is a better version, arguably. It's a bit clearer, and you have some leading light. Now I did these obviously a few times, which is why there's gonna be a few different versions, because I was noticing that there are some bad shots and bad lighting. So you can see there's a difference in the lighting here and the daytime, obviously. So here again, you can see the highlights, and I might have decided to, in this case, I'm not gonna do too much, but I would probably have maybe thought about maybe highlighting this a bit, right? Highlighting here a little bit, highlighting here a bit, you know, just to get it to pop. You see this one just is definitely not okay. Maybe highlight a little bit over here, and then maybe focus on this area, right? Now this area might have been more interesting to also look at the color balance, right? So it might be a bit too much blue, so let's dim down the blue a little bit. Maybe there's too much green, so let's dim down the green a little bit. So purple is always interesting, actually. I've noticed at my current job it works quite well. So you could change the mood a little bit by doing these kind of things, right? And then you might have a look at the levels again, just to see that it's actually spiking out. So if I do this, you can see it's quite a lot. So again, normally when it spikes, I kind of know now that okay, it's, unless it's an artistic reason, it's probably not a good idea. But just for the fun of it, I mean, these are obviously also a bit subjective, these specific shots, but I mean, you can see there's a slight difference in terms of the highlight. It looks, you know, it looks like a proper reflection now. Here also you have a night version of the other version. Here again we're talking about just the idea of form, shape, right? And again, I'm guessing now at this stage this is supposed to be in the back. So making it darker might not work because it's in the back. So you might instead pop up the front, right? Pop up the blue, kind of make it separate as you possible. Do a little bit here, do a little bit here, right? Through there, a little bit there, and a little bit there, you know, make it pop a bit. And again, we might decide to darken it, but sometimes it's really about color. Like, is there something you can do to separate things more? So let's just try now. I'm not really good at these things, which you can probably notice, but that's okay. That's okay. I'm learning again over and over. So let's do a layer, and let's just paint over this area. It's kind of like masking, but I'm just not gonna bother with, you know, complicated techniques at the moment because I want to be quick and I have to get to work soon as well. Okay, then just do this one very quickly, like something like that. It's obviously the wrong color, but it's too late now. It's too late. So we're just gonna do this, okay? And what we could do, let's see if I remember. Let's do overlay, I guess, and then I'm gonna have to fix my lazy mistake. Let's go for actually, let's see if I can color pick this one. Okay, so you can see this obviously helped quite quickly, right? It's a bit more clear. So I would probably do the same here, where I'm like looking for the orange, right? And I would maybe do like an overlay here as well, or something. I don't know, anything really to fix this shitty image, you know, and maybe not that strong. Right? So let's I mean, I don't have a lot of time to go into super detail, but arguably it's a bit more interesting framing and color choice, right? Arguably. Not good. I'm gonna skip over this one. Well, yes, this was one of the first games I did, and God, it's pretty shitty at this stage. I was so happy the first time I did it, but now when I look at it, I mean, there's so many different shots I have of this game. Jerry McPartlin. Yeah, this one is so bad it might not even be fixable or use an example. But again, it's pretty flat. Here's the thing: it's flat. It's very difficult to see proper shape. It's maybe even too bright around this area. So the first thing might be that I go for like. That is not what I wanted to do. Okay, didn't do burn. Okay, so I might, try and get it to be a bit darker around here. Now I don't even know, like, I know the direction light is coming from the left because I can see a shadow. So we know technically we could get away by making this area a bit darker, right? Because we are trying to get some kind of form and shape, right? And for some reason it's dark there, so let's just, I don't know what's going on there. Wow, this is super bad. I can't believe I like that. Okay, but obviously what we can know from experience is we've been too nice, and this is a weakness of mine. I still have some trouble deciding that, is to pop the light a bit. I'm not always comfortable making the light too bright, but I'm getting to it because I'm working on a more stylized game and getting some mentorship from my art director as well. So I'm having the opportunity to get a bit more comfortable with, this kind of lighting for this kind of games, for that matter. Right, so you can see that I'm trying to kind of make it darker and make it pop a bit. So if I were to, it has a bit more clarity of where you want the character to go, because you want the character, I think you wanted the character to go the back way. You might want to have the character go in the front, so you would maybe make that actually brighter, right? You would give this area a sense of purpose in this case, because again we're talking about not just framing, composition, shape, form, foreground, background, all these kind of things, but we're also talking about in this case a little bit about the fact that we have a little bit of level design to consider as well, right? So you might want to add some more white, maybe more white there, just to make it a bit more visible. This is another piece which definitely could, it's just one of the better pieces I did at the time. I made a horror prototype of it as well, so it's not necessarily the worst one of the pieces I've shown so far, so it obviously shows some improvement. But here also we're talking about the ability to look at the image and go, okay, it's a bit dark, right? You can see it's super dark, so which is not a bad thing, it fits the mood and everything, but you might want to brighten up some of the areas, right, to make them pop a bit without dragging up the overall value too much. You might go like there, right? So these are the things we are looking for when we're looking at a piece. Now if I undo it, look, it's super flat, it's super just weird. And then if I try and do a little bit, not too much, and just do a little bit here as well if I wanted to, and then slide this a bit to get an idea of how far I can push it, right? And then you might also have a look at the exposure and go, okay, maybe if you make everything a little bit brighter first, you can offset some of the areas. That's too dark, so it's too much. And then I can do like this and go, okay, maybe I want to exposure a specific area, so you could use the mask instead. And I think, is it the black one I would use then, if I remember? So this would keep, I guess this would keep this area untouched, and this area untouched, this area untouched, right? So I think if I do it now, so you want to make sure that the specific area, now in this case I'm being super quick and lazy, so now it's clipping here, and that's not a good thing. It's clipping here, and that's not a good thing, right? So clipping is when it's just too white and just too many spikes trying to pop up, right? And then you might also think about, again, the color aren't necessarily always correct the first time you do it, so you might decide that your colors are a bit wrong. So you might go, okay, maybe we should have gone for a warmer color, because maybe that suited the style a bit more. So you might have gone over a bit, right, just some of the areas in this case, and you might have said, okay, let's kind of make it a more soft light and dim it down a bit, right? And it gives you this kind of painterly effect also in this case. So there's certain things you want to keep in mind, like gradient and stuff like that. And then you might say, okay, the color for the moon is maybe that's not good enough either. So you might go, okay, gonna fix that a little bit. Not being super sloppy. It's just the principles we're talking about, right? And then you might decide, okay, it's actually too dark, right? So you would then again use another exposure and you would darken it down a little bit. So these are the kind of things. So these are things you want to keep in mind with. So you can see it still helps. It pops it out a bit more. It's not flat. So whenever I say it's flat, or whenever someone else gives you advice and say it's flat, it's just there's no true difference in contrast and the color choices and value. And another way to have a look at it is by going into hue and saturation and just turn down the saturation, right? And then go into, for example, the curve, and just do the traditional S curve, right, to get an idea of the curve. And then you can always undo, and you can see there's a difference in contrast in this way as well, but it doesn't necessarily look good. This is why the eyes come into play. This one is another piece that I probably would was inspired by Alien Isolation. So when I was sharing it, a lot of people knew it was based on Alien Isolation. So that's a good thing, right? That's a good thing if people know your reference, because if that's what you wanted to do, then you succeeded in some way. But it might not always be what you want, right? It might be that it's too dark, and it might be too dark in some areas on the edges, for example, right? So in this case as well, the colors, maybe you want them to pop a bit to make them really show the burn. it's clipping a little bit, right? Just to make them a bit popping, right? So you can have like a strong focal point in here, and because of the brightness, technically it's too dark in some cases now. So you might decide, okay, it's too dark, it doesn't make sense. If I'm gonna do this, then I have to do something else. So you might decide that, okay, I'm gonna take this color and I'm gonna just spread it out a little bit over the scene. Or sometimes you might not want to do that. Let's do a hot light and just turn it down like a little bit. It's very subtle. Just a little bit more like this. Come on. Something like this. And then I would tweak it normally, like I would just erase it like this, because it doesn't match, right? And I might take the green color instead, and I might go a bit like a type of haze coming on. Right, so it will be more of a I use this just quickly to get an idea of what color I can use over another color. So I might go in and I might go, say, use the pin bucket, and maybe now I'll be like, okay, let's try this color. What happens? Okay, no, that doesn't work, right? And I might go, okay, let's take this color and let's go there, and no, then I might go to multiply, right? So you get a different like look, and then I might go, okay, so this is kind of still dark over there, so what do I do over there then? Okay, maybe I can add a little bit of this blue to be a bit less visible. Then I might just do a quick, something like this, then something like that, because it's losing shape. I mean, even though it's dark, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but we want to have like some kind of idea of shape here. Now we just do this, and we do this, right? It's a huge difference. Okay. And I'm just gonna skip this, gonna skip this. Again, these are all, it's again, it's just not working anymore, is it? Just doesn't cut it. I mean, in this theoretically speaking, actually, let's just work on it directly. It's kind of quicker, isn't it? It just doesn't have the right values and exposure, basically. Like, technically the sky would have been brighter, right? It's in the midday. Okay, that's like a first thing to keep in mind. Like, it wouldn't be the same as the ground. Should be darker in this kind of shots and angle, right? And then let's pretend that you wanted something darker. I just need to see. Okay, so let's say this one was then darker. Going in black and white is really a recommended way of kind of training your eye on what needs to change. Okay. So you should be able to see that there is a huge difference already when we are doing these kind of sessions, right? Not even, it's a bit too much. Okay, so let's see, right? I mean, it's already creating a more clear form and direction. Right, I'm actually being a bit quicker and looking in right in the middle right now. Obviously, there are some other issues. I don't know why I chose to have torches on, but in reality, these torches won't really be as efficient in being visible in the middle of the daylight. So that's something to keep in mind as well. That it wouldn't actually have a lot of effect, but let's assume it did. Tend to go for overlay, right? And it doesn't really work as much as you would like, right? So there's some things to think about. I don't know what the hell that is, mushrooms, right? So that's definitely a step away, and I think this is a good example of that. You have leading lines, but you don't have the lighting to support it. So this is one of the better pieces I have with leading lines, with the god rays. You have some light coming here, you have some shadow, you have some highlights, perhaps over the top. You have a darker area, but not too dark, and you have some light coming in from the side. It has better shape and form. Right, so if I do this, you can see there's a focal point here, right? It's dark, there's a little bit of different ratio of brightness. So if I actually go in here, take up this, and I do the mouse, that's not gonna work. I actually have to do here. Let me try again. So you can see here the value pops around here, and it doesn't always go to the maximum because that would be clipping, right? And it goes darker and darker, and it doesn't actually go all the way down in this version. I have another version where I experimented. This was the original and this was the edited version, if I remember correctly. So in this version, people like both versions, so again, there's something to keep in mind. And this, the reason I edited this original version is just, there's nothing wrong with it, but I didn't think it popped enough for my taste. Because if I go here, you can see that it's all pretty evenly lit, right? And then it pops a little bit. So it's in theory you could say it's contrasty, but in theory you could say this is, for me, this was a better piece. This was when I was also practicing a little bit of DaVinci Resolve to understand contrast exposure in a different way, and this is also why I'm showing this, is to kind of show you the different growth that you can go through, different way you can teach your eyes to understand this kind of content, right? So if I were to do something here now in Photoshop, it's a different matter, but let's have a look anyway, right? It's just, it looks too subtle, right? I think it looks too subtle, so I would probably, brighten up the areas a little bit. But the thing is, you would have to brighten up a lot of the areas, otherwise it becomes too obvious and too contrasty. Like you can see, it's a bit contrasty if you don't give it some other information in the rest of the scene, right? To bring out the color, like the blue color in the back here, in the walls, Now, so this is pretty contrasty, right, in comparison to this one. So in this case, this is a worse piece than this one. Okay, because actually they are equal. If I were to be honest, they are in theory equal, because this one is pretty flat, this one is clipping, right? So that's why I think this one was definitely a better piece, which arguably I could have a look at. You can see it's not clipping as much, and arguably you can see that this one is clipping a lot, and they're both having a different clip. So this one is more balanced, right? So you could possibly tweak it more if you wanted to, I guess, and see how far you could push it. Yeah, I mean, maybe like not lose all the details here. So I hopefully this random, it's not really random, I was thinking about doing this yesterday, but I didn't want to spend too much time like getting into Photoshop or Lightroom or DaVinci and to get too technical. I just want to make a video, have some fun doing it, hopefully get some feedback, and then if I get positive comment, positive like, positive, just anything from the social media, then I might spend more time. You can already hear that I've invested in a better microphone, because people were complaining that it was too low, especially on mobile devices. So hopefully that's better. And just subscribe, just like, just share, and hopefully I can make some more content for you guys. So again, hopefully this is useful. I'll keep doing some more of these pieces where I go over to next pieces and kind of think loudly about them and what I might do differently and what the issue was and why it's not on my art station at the moment. Thank you for watching, and I should get ready for work. Bye bye.